Hi guys, my name is Allie. If you've never been to my channel, I began this new series called, what is it? I can't remember if it was Crime on the Couch. Crimes on the Couch. I don't know like what to name it, like couches and crime, because I'm like on the couch and I'm going to tell you this story. So I'm going to talk to you about the disappearance slash murder of Heather Elvis. And I do not mean any disrespect when I do these videos. I do them out of the, like, out of my heart. Like, I really feel for this case. When I first heard about it, like, I researched the hell out of it. And so some of my details could be different than yours. I use different sources than you, most likely, but it all came from online. So, and I got my notes down here too. So let's see. Heather Elvis, she was born June 30th, 1993 in the Carolina Forest of South Carolina. So let's see. So this means that she was 20 years old at this time. 20 years old. Yeah. 19. Okay, yeah, she was 20 years old. And 19 or 20 at the time. And she was a regular teenager. She loved going out with her friends. She had a couple close friends. They had she had an apartment with one of her best friends. I'm not sure the name, but she had an apartment with one of her best friends. They always had fun together. They worked together. She had a great time at her job. She worked at a place called the Tilted Kilt, which is where, you know, the girls, they wear their short little skirts and like the crop tops, and men can come in and watch the football games and stuff like that. Well, Heather was very, she was very good with coming to work. She was on time. She always did her best. She never missed days. That was very unlike her. And one day, a man comes in. The heck is his name? Oh my gosh. Hold on, here we go. His name is Sidney Moorer. So Sidney Moorer. Okay. Sidney Moorer shows up at the Tilted Kilt to do some repairing. He's the repairman at the Tilted Kilt. And all the girls are whispering, you know, like, oh my God, he's so cute, he's so cute. But he especially had a liking for Heather. And Sidney was older than Heather. I think that he was in his late 30s. I'm not completely sure. I should know these things, but he was not her age. He was definitely in his late 30s. Let me see. I'm actually going to Google it real quick. Okay, hold on one sec, guys. Okay, he was 38. He was 38. He was 38. And she was 20. So he had some, you know, he was an older guy, and, you know, she thought he was attractive. He thought she was attractive, and he came in a couple of times to do some repairing. And they finally started chit-chatting, exchanging numbers. You know, they would do the little eye thing, looking at each other, smiling, doing like little flirty things. And this is before that Heather knew that he was married. This is before. And so they start going on dates and stuff like that. And he starts picking her up from her apartment. You know, they go out, and whatever, do whatever. They were sexually active. They did, you know, do that type of stuff. And so after Sydney's wife Tammy learned of this affair, she went so crazy that she would handcuff him to the bed at night. She would check his text messages, put cameras in the house, put cameras everywhere. She had him like pinged on his phone everywhere he went. She would call Heather and threaten her, threaten to kill her, threaten crazy things. So Heather cut things off with Sydney. Heather was like, I'm not fucking with this bitch, you know, like, she sounds crazy, she keeps calling me, harassing me. When Heather didn't really even know that Sydney was married, you know, she just knew that he was an older man. She didn't know that he had, you know, kids of his own, a wife of his own at home. But she liked Sydney a lot, and Sydney led her on a lot. And that was on his part really bad as a married man with kids. And Tammy, instead of locking your man's arm, you know, to like the bedpost at night and going, you know, following him around and like pinging him on his phone to see where he's going, and like always being where he has to be, like, that is insane. Like, that's absolutely insane. Why put yourself through that instead of just getting a divorce? Okay, but anyway, so a few months go by since Heather and Sydney talk. They haven't talked in a couple months, but it's December, and she gets a text from Sydney at, let's see, what time did she get the text? So this night, actually, that he texted her, Heather had been on a date with another boy. And that man dropped her off at her apartment at 1:15 a.m. A half hour later, she called her roommate. Her roommate at the time was visiting her family out of town to tell her how her date had gone. Although there are records of her cell phone being used over the next 2 hours, she has not been seen or heard from since this morning. Like, since 1:15 a.m. she was not seen or heard. Like she was heard from her friend, but she was not physically seen. So let's see. Yes, Tilted Kill. She works at the House of Blues. Let's see. All right, let's see. The date had been Elvis's attempt to move on after the date that Heather Elvis was an attempt to move on after her relationship with Sydney, the repairman she had met through her local job at the restaurant at the Tilted Kill 2 months earlier. According to some accounts, this had been the result of Moore's wife Tammy learning of the affair. She sent Heather several confrontational text messages, but denies any role in her disappearance. Phone records show that Elvis's phone, which is Heather and Sydney's, were used to call each other several times in the early hours of December 18th, which is the day that she went missing, the night she went missing. He called her that night briefly on 2 occasions. They were very short conversations. When the cops looked through the phone records, they were very short conversations. And they saw him on a security footage around, I think it was like a couple hours after she left this date at 1:15 a.m. It was a couple hours. It was still the early hours of the morning, like maybe 3-ish a.m. Don't take my word for it. I don't know the exact time, but he was seen on security footage buying something. Let's see. So the footage shows, okay, so anyway, so sorry guys, I'm getting like choked up. Heather gets a text from Sydney saying, let's hang out tonight, you know, blah 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 blah, I really want to see you. But it was really Tammy and Tammy was writing this the whole time. It was Tammy's idea the whole time. And Heather agreed because Heather really liked Sydney. So Sydney picks up Heather. Heather hops in the truck. They drive off a little bit, and they get to the boat landing by where they were going to meet and do whatever, talk, whatever they're gonna do. And guess who pops up from behind? Tammy comes around the back, grabs Heather, and from there, we don't know what happens. Heather's phone was turned off as soon as they reached that boat dock. There is footage of Sydney Moore and Tammy Moore's truck footage from somebody's house that was near the boat dock, of his boat, of the truck going towards the boat launch at a certain time, and then like half hour, 45 minutes later, going from the boat launch back to their house after killing Heather Elvis. Tammy was so jealous that he had to make her husband kill this 19/20-year-old girl, because she was so fucking jealous. She couldn't just divorce him. She couldn't just move on. There's no other option for her. In her head it wasn't enough until Heather was dead. And it just gets crazy. It gets crazy. Oh my gosh. Let's see. He says the two did talk to each other briefly on 2 occasions, but also denies any wrongdoing, despite security camera footage showing a truck believed to be his driving to and from the boat landing where Heather's car was found that evening. They found Heather's car at the boat landing. After they realized that she was missing, they found her car at that boat landing. So, okay, so then actually I messed that up. Heather must have met him at the boat landing, right? Heather met him at the boat landing. Heather hops in his truck at the boat landing, and Tammy is in the back. Big ass, fat. I'm going to be rude for a second. I'm going to be rude. Big ass Tammy, scary. She was already threatening Heather in the first place. Little skinny Heather, young. Tammy, 40 something. Tammy pops out of the back of the truck, grabs Heather by the throat, and starts going at it. And that is where Heather is believed to be murdered. It's crazy. It's sad. It is crazy. Just think about how many of your friends that you know that mess with men that are married, and then picture their wife being so crazy that she makes her husband set you up to hang out so they can murder you together. Just think of that. I know so many girls, like from over the years, who have talked to people's husbands, boyfriends at the time. Be fucking careful, because these women are not playing about their men, and they're willing to go to prison. They had teenage kids. Those Tammy Moore and Sydney Moore had teenage kids. Like, I don't know why they thought they'd get away with this, but anyway, it's believed that Heather was buried on their property because they had this big excavation thing going on their lawn, pulling the whole concrete up. It was crazy. They're having huge bonfires. The next day after they found Heather's car, Sydney's whole car was like literally clean top to bottom, all top to bottom clean, nothing, not a shred of evidence in that truck. Okay, let's see. 4 months later, both Moores were charged with murder, obstruction of justice, and indecent exposure. Investigation also led to the couple being charged with Medicaid fraud as well. Like, what? They were pretty well off. The murder and the incident exposure charges were dropped in 2016, but Sydney was convicted of 2 obstruction charges the following year. 2 men, 1 relatives of Elvis's, were charged with obstruction of justice in 2014 for posting misleading information online and conducting their own investigation on Sydney's trial. Let's see, it was a hung jury, by the way, at the trial. I was so happy. This took years for these 2, Tammy and Sydney, to be put in prison. Every day I follow on Facebook the Justice for Heather Elvis. You can find it on Facebook. Every day I was waiting for them for justice to be served for Heather. Like, that is a young girl. That is a young girl. She does know better, but like, she had her whole life ahead of her. Picture that being your own daughter. Your own daughter was only a couple years younger than her. Girls make mistakes, you know? At first, Heather had no idea that Sydney was even married. She found out after that she had feelings for him, that he was married. So, of course, things got a little crazy. But, guys, girls, just be careful out there. Let me see if there's anything else. Despite the convictions, many of the facts of the case remain in dispute. In the text messages and posts on social media, Tammy depicted She depicted Heather as an obsessive stalker whose attention to her husband would not have bothered her if she had not become physically threatening to the family. Elvis's friends have suggested in turn that Sydney privately told Heather he wanted to continue the affair to the point of leaving his wife. So Sydney told Heather he was going to leave his wife for her. He told her all this stuff, and Tammy was lying in court saying that Heather was obsessed with her man, wouldn't leave her man alone, was threatening their family. But it was actually Tammy threatening Heather and Heather's roommate who she lived with, because she was a crazy bitch. Here we go. Yep. So Sydney was going to continue the affair, and he was to the point of leaving his wife, who reportedly handcuffed him to the bed at night to keep him faithful to her. If you have to handcuff your man to the bed to keep him faithful to you, what are you doing? He ain't the one, boo. He ain't the one. Let that handcuff go. He ain't the one. Oh my God, bro. Ugh. Sydney's family says she physically abused him. Sydney reported to the police several instances in which he was physically threatened while on bail from the murder charges, and posted signs decrying harassment of his children and his property. Similarly, the Elvises had a news conference to denounce what they claimed was organized online harassment of them. Yeah, you're probably going to be harassed for murdering a pretty much innocent young woman. I mean, yes, after she knew that they were married, maybe she should have cut him off. But you know, once you have feelings for somebody, Sydney is the one who's 38 years old. Heather is the younger one, 19 years old, 20 years old tops. He knows better. He knows better. He knows better. This is his fault. Tammy's fault. His fault and Tammy's fault. My God, bro. Let's see. Heather Elvis, a native of Horry County, graduated in 2011 from St. James High School in Murrells Inlet. Her parents allowed her, as their oldest daughter, to move out into her own apartment shortly afterwards in Carolina Forest, which she shared with a roommate from out of state. She worked as a waitress at the Tilted Kill in Myrtle Beach and House of Blues in North Myrtle Beach while studying cosmetology. In June 2013, Elvis took notice of Sydney Moore, a 38-year-old married resident of Sakasti, who repaired the kitchen equipment at one of the restaurants. She tweeted earlier that month that she had a taste for men who were older. Her roommate, Bree Warrelman, that's roommate Bree. Also, a co-worker of Heather at the time recalled that Elvis pointed him out at her work. Almost a month later, she expressed sexual interest in the guy who builds at my job. On July 12th, a tweet responded to a friend who told Heather she had a lot of explaining to do, named a Sydney as someone who would go out of her way to see for hours after she follows up with baby did a bad thing. I'm in way too deep, but watch me get in deeper. Oh my God, guys. Let me just say bye to my man real quick, and I will be right back. I'm not going to pause it because I don't want to have to connect the videos. I'm just going to say bye to him, and I will be right back. Just hold on one second. All right, I love you. Where are you going? Okay. Alright, I love you. Text me when you get there, okay? Okay, don't call me though till I call you first, because they will mess up the whole video. Okay, I'm back, guys. Friends and co-workers recalled that Elvis also discussed the relationship she was having with them as well. Sydney would often come to the restaurants when he was not working to deliver coffee and bagels to Heather. Moore considered asking her to work as his children's nanny should he and his wife move to Florida, as they were considering doing. So since Sydney and his wife were thinking about moving to Florida, he was going to have Heather be their nanny. Moore said his affair with Elvis, Heather. Moore is Sydney and Elvis is obviously Heather. So Moore said his affair with Elvis was primarily confined to September. Late that month, Elvis tweeted, "Once upon a time, an angel and a devil fell in love. It did not end well," which has since been interpreted as referring to the relationship by then ended. Like the relationship ended at that time that she tweeted that. Shortly afterwards, Moore's wife, Tammy, found out about the affair, which made her very angry. Woo! You don't want to see that woman angry. Did you see her face at all? Boo! I'd be running for the damn hills. So, Bree, the roommate of Heather, said Tammy made Sydney call Elvis. So Bree said that Tammy made Sydney call Heather and end the affair with her listening. Sydney, she says, told Heather that she was nothing to me, just someone who spreads your legs. Bree said Sydney basically tore Heather apart as a human being and made her feel horrible about herself. Tammy, who later told a friend that her husband, Heather, had confined their relations to oral sex, also sent the younger woman texts and pictures of herself and Sydney having sex. That is so fucked up. To make sure her husband remained faithful to her, Tammy handcuffed him to the couple's bed every night. He said later changed his phone password to one only she knew, and accompanying him whenever he went out anywhere outside the house. He agreed to all these restrictions in order to save their marriage. He also made him get her name tattooed above his dick. Y'all, Tammy. However, Tammy continued to contact Heather, texting her, "Hey, sweetie, what, ready to meet at the MRS?" I don't know what that is. And threatening her physically or implying that she was going to kill her husband. On November 1st, Heather texted back that she was no one you need to worry about anymore. A text that said, "By the way, Dad no longer has his phone," presumably referring to Sydney. That's what Tammy said. Her only other direct response to the many messages she was receiving from Tammy. Tammy also tried to get Elvis fired from her job at the Tilted Kilt, calling the restaurant regularly and telling them that her husband would stop repairing their equipment as long as Heather continued working there. At one point, Sydney reportedly managed to begin texting Heather again, telling her that his wife had not objected the affair itself, since she also had a lover, but to his lying about it. She asked him when he would have his phone back, and he said the relationship was over. She agreed, but she said she wanted Tammy to stop calling the Tilted Kilt. "I lost hours today because they sent me home after she kept calling." She wrote at one point. She wrote that at one point. However, on November 5th, when Elvis last saw Sydney, she retweeted a joke by comedian Daniel Tosh that seemed indirectly referencing the affair. "Hey, married fellas, you can either cheat on your wife or murder her, never both. That's when you get caught." That appeared to be the end of the communications between Heather and the Moores. The couple and their 2 children left South Carolina to drive to Disneyland for vacation November 19th. They returned December 11th. At the time of the Moorers' return, Heather, according to her friends and family, was recovering from the affair. She had gotten a job at a beauty parlor in downtown Myrtle Beach, starting just before Christmas, which she was eagerly anticipating and resolved, along with Bree, to begin attending church regularly. However, she had put on weight, and co-workers at the Tilted Kilt noted that her uniforms had gone up 3 bra sizes. Elvis was concerned she had become pregnant, possibly by Sydney. Her manager at the Tilted Kilt said she had taken one pregnancy test, which came back as an error. On the night of December 17th, she went on a first date with another man, Steven. Starting at 10 p.m., he drove her around in his car, looking at residential Christmas lights in the area. They later drove to a parking lot of the Inlet Square Mall, where he taught her how to drive his manual transmission vehicle. Elvis sent photos of herself using stick to her father and Bree. Steve dropped Heather off at her Carolina Forest apartment around 1:15 a.m. He is the last person known to have seen her. 20 minutes later, a call was placed from a payphone to Heather's phone. It lasted 5 minutes. Shortly afterwards, Heather called Bree, who was then out of state visiting her family for the holidays. Heather said that Sydney had called, telling her he was planning to leave his wife and asking her to meet him. Bree, who described her roommate as hysterical during the conversation, counseled her not to do so. After 2 minutes, the call was ended. Heather's whereabouts have not been conclusively established beyond 1:45 a.m. on December 18th. On the evening of December 19th, Elvis's green 2001 Dodge Intrepid was found, parked perpendicular to the spaces it was in, at the Peachtree Landing boat launch along the Waccamaw River in Socastee, about 8 miles from her apartment. It was locked, and when opened, her phone, keys, purse were not inside. Calls to her phone went unanswered, and she was not at her apartment nor either of her jobs. Horry County Police began a missing person investigation. Stephen, being the last person to have seen Heather, was quickly cleared. The day after the car was found, a search of the area around the boat landing found no sign of Heather. Later searches of the riverbed down to Winyah Bay by a team of rescue divers from Coastal Carolina University were likewise fruitless. A set of bones discovered in another nearby New Year's Day were later found to belong to a male. Cell phone records. Investigators were able to obtain Heather's phone records, which show considerable activity on the preceding morning over the hours that she had told Bree that Sydney called her. Although they cannot say whether Heather was the one using it, pings show at 2:30 a.m. a call had been made from the phone to the payphone that had made the first call to Heather, but no one answered. Shortly after, it was taken to Longbeard's Bar and Grill elsewhere in Carolina Forest, where it remained for 15 minutes. After the phone left, it was taken as far away as Augusta Plantation Drive, whereupon it was returned to Longbeard's for another 15 minutes. At the end of that time period, a call to Sydney's cell phone was placed from it, but was not answered. The phone appeared to be in motion, suggesting it had left from Longbeard's. Within 5 minutes, it was back at Elvis's. It was back at the Elvis's apartment. It was back at Heather was back at her apartment, and remained there for another 5 minutes. During that time, she called Sydney's phone again, and then located at his home, resulting in a 4-minute conversation. At 3:37 a.m., about 8 minutes after that call ended, the phone is taken to the Peachtree Landing. A minute later, 3 attempts are made to call Sydney's phone from it within the space of 2 minutes. All are unanswered. At 3:41, another attempt was made. A minute and a half later, data records from Heather's phone end. Its location can only be identified as somewhere in the Waccamaw National Wildlife Refuge. Tammy and Sydney's phone records were also examined and had been no communication between the two via those phones from November 2nd, the day Sydney would later testify. He surrendered his phone to Tammy as a condition of remaining married until 4:37 a.m. December 18th, when she sent him a text asking for the pot stickers and orange juice. "Yes, ma'am," he replied immediately afterwards. Okay, so now we're at the security footage. Police found video evidence further linking Sydney Moore and Heather's activities in the early hours of December 18th. Security cameras at the Myrtle Beach Walmart showed that at 1:12 a.m. that night he entered the store. 7 minutes later, he bought cigars and a pregnancy test and left. So Heather was probably pregnant, came up positive, and Tammy murdered her. That's what I believe. Footage from a Kangaroo gas station on Joe White Avenue showed Sydney making the call from the payphone across the street to Heather's phone at 1:35 a.m. Investigators also reviewed the footage from the private security cameras along the 3 miles between the Moorers' house and Peachtree Landing. Two at one home midway along the route, and another one closer to the landing showed a dark Ford F-150 pickup truck passing in the direction of the landing at 3:36 and at 3:39 a.m. respectively. At 3:35 and 3:46 a.m., the vehicle returns going the opposite direction back to the Moorers' house. The license plate is not visible. However, after analysis and enhancement of the video by both South Carolina Highway Patrol's Accident Investigation Unit, was determined to be Sydney's, and it was searched. Okay, so now we're going to get to the arrests. The first 2 arrests related to the case were not the Moorers or anyone suspected of involvement in the Heather Elvis disappearance. On January 2018, 2014, William Barrett and Garrett Ryan Starnes were arrested and charged with obstruction of justice. Police said both had posted information on social media about the case that was either false or misleading, and that investigators had wasted time being diverted from the case when they looked into it. Both were released after posting bond. Let's see. Twice during February, Sydney Moore told police people had fired at him or brandished weapons while he was driving on local roads with his family due to the publicity over his possible role in the disappearance. In the former incident, Georgetown County deputy sheriffs who responded saw no signs that his truck had been hit, despite Sydney's claim that he had heard shells strike it. He claimed later that in addition to those incidents, he had been followed and received threats against himself and his home, and the family's pets had been killed and mutilated. Later, Sydney's post signs outside the family home lamenting and threats and the impact that they had on his children, whom some of them, he said, had been directed at by name. On February 21st, police closed off the section of the Carolina Highway next to the Moorer house to execute a search warrant for the property. Let's see. After 11 hours in which law enforcement searched thoroughly, the Moorers were both arrested at home and charged with murder, kidnapping, obstruction of justice, and 2 counts of indecent exposure. The latter charge resulted from sexually explicit images found on their phones that they were determined to have been taken of themselves in public places. The obstruction charges against Sydney were later specified as resulting from his early denial of his use of the payphone, and a claim he reportedly retracted only when confronted with the security camera footage from the gas station showing him making the call. At a news conference announcing the arrest, police did not go into detail about what evidence supported the murder and the kidnapping charges. The Moores posted the $20,000 bond set for those two charges, but later waived the bond on the kidnapping charges in favor of the murder charges, on which they were initially held without bond. Let's see. I just want to see something. Pretty much, they're both convicted of murder and kidnapping, and they are both locked away for life. Or at least they'll be very old if they even, when they even get a hearing. So we just need to find Heather Elvis's body. That's still not found. They still have not given that up yet, which is pretty sad. But I will keep you guys updated if there's any other information on this case. I love you so much. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you enough information. And I hope that you remember Heather for who she was and not for just the surrounding case, you know? So I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.